AmandaLand. We up. Christina Brown.
Hello. I have a
So,
sentence for undulate.
please,
My gut is undulating after eating some cheese.
was it
Lactose
worth it?
intolerance.
But was it worth it?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the thing. Cheese is
You
that
know what I'm
girl.
saying? It is,
It really is.
unfortunately.
And y'all be knowing that the lactose intolerances, y'all be knowing, but you like, I'll just thug it out.
I'll do it for Big Mac. I don't do it for anything else but Big Mac.
Okay. All right. As somebody who eats night cheese, I am I have massa in me, and sometimes it shows up in the best of ways. And I feel like the massa in me can handle a lot of dairy.
Wow, I can't.
So, your blackness showed up different than mine.
It did. It did. It in the gut.
In
Because
the
I can't do it. I can't do it. I can barely breathe it, smell it.
Oh. All right. Well, thankfully, we are only here virtually. We're here virtually. So this is Christina Brown, Miss Xtina B on the Instagrizzles and the TikTokals. And so this segment, Christina, is one where I really just be bringing in folks who I know be reading shit and who be trying. And so sometimes it's experts, but sometimes it's also people who are like trying to become knowledgeable about things. And yeah, because that's the other part of it is that it's one thing to I'm going to go to school and become an expert at blah, 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 or I am a farmer. But a lot of us are really just trying to learn about things, and we don't necessarily know like the best course of action to do so, et cetera. But some of us are really good at that. And I feel like you're somebody who's really good at saying, I'm going to learn about this, finding out where to learn about it, synthesizing it, and then spitting it out.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like I'm a forever student, and that doesn't necessarily have to be in the academic elitist institutions, even though, don't get it twisted, I do have a master's. But there's other ways to be knowledgeable and have knowledge. And oftentimes I feel like I see some similar principles in street smarts that I do in academic smarts anyways. It's just niggas saying it in different ways and they're not using the right quote unquote vernacular. So yeah, I definitely consider myself like a forever learner.
Though I will bring out the elitism when people try to come at me but have no punctuation. I will actually
I will be like, cite your source. Cite your source.
Did you just try to come for me and there was not one period in this paragraph? Okay. Then I will become an elitist and be like, if you're gonna try to use the King's English to come at me, at least do it right.
Do it correct.
Okay. So that being said, I know you heard me tell the people that I'm gonna just hand it over to you while I work.
Okay.
So what are you leveling us up about today? What have you been leveling yourself up about?
That's what it is. I want to level us up on something that I've been leveling myself up about recently. And that, if I could put it in a sentence, is like ancestral resilience and resistance and tapping and understanding what that was, not just intellectually, academically, spiritually, somatic.
So this is actually very timely because I just did an episode
I don't know
of
how many
Surrounded.
Christians in the chat.
I just did an episode of Surrounded.
We don't have to talk about the Christianity. Oh no.
Oh no.
Something happened with the internet. You were saying something?
Yes.
I'm back.
Okay, you're back. So this is actually very timely because what was happening is that this weekend I did an episode of Surrounded on Jubilee on YouTube where it was one black radical against 20 black versus 20 black conservatives. And that's better. I was telling them, I was like, that's better for people like Christina, Afeni, like the youngers. It's not y'all gotta do that. For me, it's not for me.
You just did it. Is it out?
I did it on Sunday. No, it's not out yet, but I did it on Sunday. And I just don't have the countenance anymore. Like I feel like I'm working to get in my softer side, and like that doesn't allow for me to do that. That being said, I think I handled myself fine. But what was really disconcerting was how many of them were so deeply committed to this concept of why can't Black people just get it together? We're supposed to be resilient. Why are we always hurting each other? If we're resilient, why is it that I can level up but this other person can't? And I was trying to really take the stance of, acknowledging that there are so many like various factors that allow for this, even just the basic one of like, I have different abilities than you as an individual, etc. But they kept coming back to like, well, if this Black did it, why can't that Black do it? Look at your face. Because that was,
Sorry.
I don't know what my face was doing. I know my face was contortionist. Okay.
Your face, you can't hide a facial expression.
I can't hide a face. And also I felt somewhat sad for them. There was also a lot of immigrant like Black folks in the circle who had a lot to say. And as somebody who is both, I had to eventually, and I don't know if they're going to keep this in the edit, but I had to eventually look dead in the camera and say, hey, check this out. If you are a Black person that is not from the United States, not too much on what it is to be a Black person from the United States. Not too much on that, because you don't understand the nuances and the specificities of what it is to be a Black person in this here United States as a descendant of that experience. And there are folks who are not from here that get it, like, whether it was Stokely Carmichael or Shirley Chisholm or, well, Shirley Chisholm is from here, but she grew up in Bahamas and Jamaica. But, Barbados, Marcus Garvey, etc. But not too much. Not too much. And as far as being a part of the diaspora, we should be able to not have judgment, but have curiosity. And this is what you talk about with your diaspora wars.
All the time. And all the time. It's particularly because I feel like it was my living experience and traveling that had me approach and just interact with the diaspora in a different way.
Yeah.
And it constantly still learning. Like, I'm from SoCal. And I just moved to New York 3 years ago. Different Black ethnic the demographic, and like
there's not even Dominicans in SoCal. They're like, what is a Dominican? What's that?
Yeah, for honestly, dead ass. And I tell people that, and they're like, "What, really?" And I'm like, "I'm telling you, I didn't know when people were talking about you look like you're from Diana or Trini. I'd be like, what are you talking about?
And you do actually.
And I do, and I do, and I do. And when I'm in DC, they're like, "Habsha, you don't speak Amharic." And when
I'm not Ethiopian, I'm not Eritrean, I'm not
Not. When I'm in Senegal, they're like, Fulani. No, and it was being in these different setting abroad in Europe, visiting Senegal, living now in New York, being from Southern California, like seeing the way, just my own curiosity in the diaspora and similarities. I'm really annoyed that we don't see the similarities. That's really what pisses me off.
It's rice and beans. It's rice and beans. We did a whole episode of my podcast about this, by the way, with Christina. It's rice and peas. It's peas and rice. It's rice and beans. It's just.
I don't understand how, and even down to like people looking at that center scene. I've seen diaspora wars happen from that center, the scene in Centers where Sammy's playing the guitar and then he's a griot.
Oh, my favorite scene. Yeah.
I know. And people arguing about, seeing this shows that this stems from Africa. Your culture is African culture. And then people being like, well, no, this has nothing to do. And it's like, the point of that scene is to show connection.
Isn't that obvious? That wasn't obvious?
You would think.
I want to go take a nap. I want to take a nap.
It's to show connection.
It's literally that's its purpose, is to show we're all
connected, and how it transmutes
supernaturally,
and how it transmutes, and how we transmuted it. And I think that's my frustration right now. I really am feeling that's where I've been leveling up myself a bit, and calling out even my own ignorance, and stuff that I might have, or no, 100% have grown up with, not understanding other aspects of the Black experience or the diasporic experience or aspects of Blackness that I can and cannot relate to. Like, I feel as though the crabs in a bucket mentality, unfortunately, has really, done a number on us. It's done a number on us, the way that we argue, the way that we fight, the way that even the pointing that you were talking about, the Black conservatives, if I can do it, why can't this other Black do it? Whoa.
It's so weird. It's like I could do a handstand right now. You can't. You know
And
what I'm saying? Like,
also, maybe you're supposed to be able to do that, and I'm supposed to do
that's
this.
what I said. And that's what I said. Christina B, Xtina B. That's what I said. I was like, we all have different capabilities, and really the mutual aid, the cooperative, the community part of it is that if I have more of this capability than you, then I'm going to extend it to you. And if you have more of that, then you're going to extend it to me. And like, that's how we all work together in tandem. If we are in a forest, my type of tree might be able to go higher to get the sun, and your type of tree might be lower. But because I'm getting the sun, I can, with my nutrients, send my roots could send you the nutrients I'm getting. Like, that's the whole
Yeah,
point.
that's the
That's the whole
point. But
point.
instead, everyone, because capitalism, you have to be everything. So if you're not everything, then you're not of value. And that's been part of my own why I brought up like ancestral resistance and resilience is learning like direct lineage. What were my people doing? Talking to elders, talking to hearing stories of the folks in my family who were part of the Black Panthers, folks in my family who were the artists and the creatives. Like I'm not, and understanding that I'm not reinventing anything. I'm simply transmuting it.
Yeah, yeah.
We all have people. Well, I believe some of our ancestors were kings. I do believe that. Some of y'all,
Some of y'all
some,
weren't.
some of y'all were not doing work. And the overseers had kids, and they had kids, and they had kids. You know?
There is a false romanticism that everybody was down when there were many
Mm-hmm.
people that were like, shh, you stirring up trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Not
And it's
everybody,
like,
like Martin Luther King died like really sad because he
yeah,
felt dissed by everybody.
yeah.
So, but okay, talk to them about resilience, and I'm going to be busy over here. So I'm
Okay.
going to mute myself.
Am I able to see comments or no?
You can't see them?
No, I'm just being yapping.
You can't see the comments? Yes, you can.
How do I?
I'll put them on the
Oh,
stage,
now
but yeah, you should be. You can't see
all I
them in the chat?
all I see is chat with everyone in the studio
Well, I'll
on
put
my
them on the
side.
stage.
Cool. I would like to see them. Yeah, I don't know why I can't. Is it, am I messing up with the settings?
I feel like perhaps, but I just put it on the screen. So
Okay, sounds good.
I'm going to
Yeah,
be
that's
quiet.
doable. Okay. So yeah, y'all, I want to talk about start off like with my own kind of experience of how I got into really digging into history. I'm a history buff, and with the lack of media literacy and critical thinking and reading comprehension and critical race theory, I'm fearing that history is being lost in the sauce, especially when history is always repeating itself. I'm like, we've been here before. I don't know if anyone else is feel that way, but like, I'm seeing we've been here before. We've been here before. What was it? It just looks different and manifests somewhat differently, but it's the same beast. It's the same evil. And I'm just like, what was it that our people were doing back then, and actually applying it into what is happening now, and learning how to apply it and transmute it and use it in the modern day. So pattern recognition. Hello, I'm literally reading a book called The Slave. The book is called The Slave. Period. What's the author? I'm gonna look that up. Speaking of books and how I got started on this is I feel like we forget that we have direct history, or I don't think that's true. I think when I talk to a lot of Black folks, we do have a very direct history. Like, I'll never forget when my grandma told me randomly, they'd just be dropping historical stuff. She told me that she picked cotton when she was 8 years old, going back down to South Carolina. And I was like, excuse me? Huh? And that was my first instance when I was in like, I think I was in high school, where I was like, oh, this history is not that long ago. The history is not that long ago. And I wanna dig into that. I wanna dig into that. So I've been digging into what exactly my direct lineage and ancestors have done, and it started where I found out one of my great uncles, um, back from and I'm working on trying to okay, I'm working on getting it republished, I think, but he wrote what my family calls the first Black, dictionary or dictionary we be gassing
You're
our history.
buffering like crazy. You must be disrupting the matrix because the buffer is serious. She's buffering. She is buffering. If you're watching on Instagram and you want to hear what's happening, then you need to come on over to
Me.
YouTube Amanda Seals TV. All right, now you're coming back. You were buffering this whole time. We didn't hear nothing you said.
The whole time I was buffering?
Well, for the past like 30 seconds, which felt like a long time because we're on the internet.
Okay, all right, thank God. I was talking about my uncle.
You
Okay,
were
I switched
saying that
my
you wanted to republish something that your uncle did.
yes. Yes. So I found out my uncle was an academic, artist, writer, creative poet, and that he wrote this book in the early 70s called Black Language. And I found a copy online. And it's like what he calls it, like a dictionary on the Black language. And when I was reading it, I was so surprised, not surprised, but it felt so invigorating to see the same shit that we're talking about today, they was talking about back then. I wasn't alive for it, but in the 60s, 70s, they're talking about it. And this was something that eventually was brought into the curriculum at Cal State universities. If anyone's from California, you know the Cal State system. That's where he was a professor. And he taught that in his classrooms, in a curriculum. And he was a teacher in high schools. And I was reading some of this stuff and I said, I didn't reinvent the wheel, is what I'm realizing. That was a connection that I was making that like, oh, he was writing a book. I'm making content online. And it's just simply the mediums in which we are using and storytelling and being the griots of making sure that we're documenting what is going on. And while I felt like a lot of reverence for like, oh my gosh, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, I have someone in my family, people in my family who were saying the same things. I also felt that, damn, 50, 60 years ago, they were saying the same damn thing. How can what is the message that we like need to say to kind of like move it along? And that's not to say that no progress or progress hasn't happened, because obviously it has, but I don't know. Now that we see ourselves in a time that it feels very polarizing, it feels very violent, it feels very the pattern recognition history buff in me is like, oh no, guys, it's getting serious. If y'all know anything about history, it's gonna get worse. And I feel we've moved past the time. I know Amanda has been talking about, I'm not arguing with people online no more. I think we might have moved past the time of like being able to sit down and give people the ropes to kind of like slowly get to the point. And now we at the point where it's like, we got to build a tribe. Who is going to be the community? Who is going to be here? Who is going to do what? Because there's not enough time to sit and argue while literally people are being stripped away from families. Places are being
That's
bombed.
literally
Like,
this morning I had 3 different ideas of spaces I want to create for that purpose.
really? Wait, which purpose? What are we going to do? Who's showing up?
Building like the point of saying like I don't have time to argue with you because I need to be building. So I need to like already be in community with folks that already get it. And I'm new, and I've always been sensibly there, but not informatively there. Mm-hmm. So now it's like the pay it forward era of like, okay, we got to expedite this quick.
We have to. We've been trying. People haven't been listening for years. I've been making social content for 5 years, and I'm like, bro, we're having the same discussions. Some people are just not going to get it. And we love to talk about how Harriet left people behind. I'm like, we're approaching that, if not there for some things. Folks got to be left behind. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, folks got to be left behind. Folks got to be left behind. If you aren't on the right side of history right now, you're gonna be the one looking back, being like, wow, that I was on that side of history. You know what I mean? But so for the ways I want to talk about, kind of like, I saw sometime about venerating ancestors. There's a thing that I particularly really liked that Amanda, you started doing. That was right around the time that I was feeling it. Is you started through comedy and in your woman show, literally like showing you a conjuring or venerating an ancestor and speaking as them with your like Harriet Tubman's calling, and like that is exactly what I mean. And that's why I was like, we're gonna talk to the Christians, Black Christians in the room, because Black Christianity, Black conservatism. Actually, I'm gonna read a passage from this book of what my uncle said. Uncle Malachi Andrews is his name, bringing him into the space. And he wrote this whole thing outside of academic language on purpose. He said it in an article at Los Angeles Times. It's all written. It's written for Black people. And he's like, I don't have to. What did he say? The book was written for Black people, not to bridge the gap between Blacks and whites. Whites reading the book will bridge their own gap. He didn't care about none of that. And that was an LA Times article in 1973. That's people I come from. Said, oh. So this is about the chapter he says about sometimes we cuss too, and he's talking about Black Christianity.
Have you ever heard the phrase someone got blessed out?
No.
My homegirl said that to me the other day, that in the church they'd be like, she had to bless him out.
Bless him out? Was it a cuss him out?
Yeah.
Well.
And I was like, yeah.
Some would say it is a blessing. You know? He starts this off by saying, Black churches, however, may not look at this work objectively due to what is deemed profane language, so-called by white dictionaries and perpetuated by all races of people. Black preachers have also been guilty of racism, mainly by not going out into the world to learn and know the people that they are trying to save. They have been waiting for sinners to come to them begging, like the white man has wanted Black people to beg and crawl. That's another reason why Christianity is losing its grip on American emotions, because many of the so-called God's ministers have lost the vision, which is for tomorrow, and have been dreaming too much. Most preachers are scared that most preachers aren't scared that they ain't really sent and anointed to lead the people anyway. They have psychological problems. Withdrawal is their number one malfunction. They withdraw from the real world and become insecure with the power of God by saying, if you go around sinners, read about or talk to them, you will become tempted to do what they do. But if God's power is in you, you can read this book and still don't cuss, see sex, and still not fornicate. God was tempted, wasn't he? Jesus went to the gamblers, didn't he? But he didn't start gambling. Ain't too many people gonna be saved anyway. Some of them people on that train that they think's going to heaven gonna fall out their wallets. Well,
let me tell you. So at that surrounded joint, the person there were two people that were just like absurdly egregious. One of them I had to have removed after he told me I acted like an animal.
Oh, I can't wait for this episode to drop.
I told them I don't want that in the episode because that's why people like that, they do that for that.
Yeah.
What do they call it? A humiliation ritual? Is that
what it's? Humiliation kink?
There's some like term that's like people be trying to do this online or whatever. And I was like, no, ma'am, get him out of here. But the other person who was just antagonizing was a reverend.
Yeah.
And he was a reverend and he kept saying, white supremacy doesn't exist. Redlining never happened. We got to stop talking about white people. He was clearly from the South. And I'm not going to lie to you, Christina. I love what your uncle said because statements like that are so egregiously incorrect that I don't even know where to start with how to, because it feels like antithetical to my body to argue a fact that's already so empirically proven.
Yeah. It's antithetical to the soul. It's antithetical to the soul. He also created his own words.
That's my favorite thing.
You want to hear it?
I love it.
He created this word called Oreofrantic. So the whole thing, it's literally this is his words. It's a glossary of words, and he went around for 3-ish years to different Black cities around like the United States and talked to people and wrote down.
What does Oreofrantic mean?
What's Oreofrantic mean? This is the most common of all cyblacotic disorders. It is tabbed by a loss of effect in soul responsiveness and a withdrawal from normal psychoblackological interpersonal relations, and is most of the time sided with delusions and hallucinations of whiteifications.
Am I your uncle? Did I reincarnate as your uncle? That's a very Caucasian explanation.
You might be whitifications. He uses as like, oh, where is that word? That word describes basically just a black person that has like hallucinations of being an Oreo or believing in white supremacy. It's so funny. He came up with psychoblackology. He also in the back of this, he gave a essay example of what it would look like to write an essay in black language, Ebonics, AAV, whatever you want to call it. He just called it black language. But he wrote an essay example of how, like, if we use and we allow black language in classrooms, this is what like an essay would look like. And the title of this one is "Nigga, you might have been super, but what about the rest of us?" I really wish I'm not. I'm reading verbatim.
Isn't it bugged to be able to see exactly where you came from and how you are, right? Like it's so trippy when you're like, oh, that's why I'm me.
That's why I act like this.
Got
I
it.
didn't read in a will. I'm gonna read 2 paragraphs because he ate. He ate. Look, here's the title. Nigga, you might have been super, but what about the rest of us who's just black? Nigga, with your MA degree, you trying to help whitey change the system in the American tradition? Now I know you shame because the American tradition ain't never included you, brother. I'm telling you, child, to pick up what I'm putting down because as kids sent tradition down the streets. We can't use it. Nigga, can you read? Well, dig on this.
Wait. Let me hold on to that for a second. Nigga, can you read? Nigga, can you read is amazing. Like that, it really feels very like, nigga, can you read?
Someone said start off an essay with nigga is hilarious.
That's my favorite part. That's my absolute favorite part. But this is also, can I just take a moment to acknowledge that this is why when people be like, you know, if you use the word nigga, it's no longer intellectual, is such a I know in their minds they're being preservative of like black pride and our identity, but it completely dissects, it completely ostracizes an entire subsect of our community that does speak like that.
Right. And that we're multilingual.
Wait, Naya Nicole said, it's my favorite word, me personally. But
honestly, it's so useful.
I had a homegirl and she would ask me when I started to like date somebody, she would ask me, do they use nigga? Because that would be like a really good way for us to kind of determine, like, can we communicate?
Absolutely.
Carry on.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this greatly.
Nigga, can you read? Well, dig on this. Frantz Fanon wrote in Wretched of the Earth. I'm going to pause because the duality. Nigga, can you read? Frantz Fanon in the Wretched of the Earth. Period.
That's Christina, do you see how this is giving you a template to your next steps? Like we were talking about, like, where does Christina fit in the, because you were like, I don't fit in the, but do you see?
Yeah.
I had chills.
I know, same. Because it's, okay, let me finish.
I can see your future.
Yeah. That's why you gotta go in the past to see future. Nigga, can you read? Well, dig on this. Frantz Fanon wrote in The Wretched of the Earth, the desire to attach oneself to tradition or bring abandoned tradition to life again does not only mean going against the current of history, but also opposing one's own people. Did you hear that? Black culture. Nigga, that's what you're opposing when you say, I don't have to talk that way to be black. I can talk elite and still relate. Run, nigga. Put your ego, white, good English voice on television and get over it. I mean, listen, daddy. It's all right, and I ain't uptight about you living on Sugar Hill, but why don't you think your stuff don't stink and side with Whitey saying, Negro talking is not a reality, and Negroes should forget black language because it is not going to get them anywhere. You sound like a white record struck on a 100-year phrase. Where you want us to go, nigga? With you? Shining black on? You forget that there are a bunch of us black children right now, today, with fantastic minds being persecuted as illiterates because our mothers speak black language. Our communities speak black language. You too stupid to remember that if you was born with brains, but your environment is of a particular culture, you will be what your culture influences you to be. I live here and I likes black culture. English is our second language here, and it's for damn sure that most of us got to study like hell to learn it. I'm going to learn it though, nigga, so I can talk about your bigotry and how you screwing us by trying to
Ooh,
make us whites. But I ain't never
ooh.
gonna forget. And then he ends. But I ain't never gonna forget black with my MA degree. Ooh.
Just while I remember, can you please make a note? Please try to be in New York September
Write it down.
20th and 21st, please.
Okay.
I mean, I get, if life happens, whatever. I'll explain to you why after. But I'm having
Yeah.
I'm having the AmandaLand Summit. It's the first of its kind.
2021st.
September 20th. Yeah, it's September 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Okay.
But the 20th will be a day of programming. And I want to talk to you about being involved.
I would love that.
Nigga.
Can you read? I'll never forget I'm gonna reread that part and then we're gonna talk about that. I live here and I like Black culture. English is our second language here, and it's for damn sure that most of us got to study like hell to learn it. I'm going to learn it though, nigga, so I can talk about your bigotry and how you screwing us by trying to make us white. But I ain't never gonna forget black with my MA degree. That part, again, crazy. It's my great uncle's words. I'm like, this is crazy. Resonated so much with me because it's like, just because we are living within the institutions and surviving within these certain institutions does not mean that we have to abandon oneself, and seeing it as a language or a tool to simply talk to the oppressor and talk to those about their bigotry, and not being a tool to abandon oneself, is something that I feel we need a reminder of, because a lot of Black folks will be like, we look to the tools, we use these tools to become white, to be white, to be better than, and not seeing it as like, this is simply just another language for me to communicate and navigate the system.
But look at this comment.
My
Hawaiian
heart,
heart felt that.
yeah.
Because that's the next step, is being able to not only let it speak for Black folks, but the coalition building of how we then communicate with each other about the ways in which
Absolutely.
the same behaviors are happening to each other.
Because it's the same formula. It's the same formula. And one of the things that because I learned French in a very tangible way, like learning a different language and traveling and being around folks where you don't speak the same language. One of the first things I actually recognize is there's so much said and so much communicated in a similar experience and in nonverbal communication that I have been able to find camaraderie in folks that we're from different parts of the world, don't speak the same language, and have completely different experiences. And in my stand-up, I do tell a story about I've had sex with somebody where we didn't have to speak the same language. I said,
How was it?
It was great until we had to plan B scare, and then I had to communicate in Germany to a man who spoke 3 languages, none of which I spoke, and then I spoke 2, none of which he spoke, about how to get a plan B in a country I had
Why was y'all
just
smashing with no
been to.
protection?
We were, but how rated R?
Side note, one time, y'all gonna learn a little
It
bit
fell
more about me
inside.
right now.
It fell inside.
Y'all gonna learn a little bit more about me right now. 10 days after an encounter, I was going to the restroom and I felt something slide out of me, and I thought that my uterus was protracting. That is what in my mind was like, oh, like an organ is removing itself from my body. No,
Oh.
it was a prophylactic. I had not been informed. At least your German man found a way to say in German, like, sprechen Sie inside of you.
What happened?
And
He
this
get
English
pulled.
speaker did not say nothing to me.
He didn't say nothing?
I damn near broke my phone with just the volume of my anger.
He didn't
Nothing.
say nothing.
I did not know. I didn't know.
That's
That
crazy.
is called, I don't think it was stealthing. I think he just was not, he was just nervous.
Well, see, I had seen him pull, and I said, "Where is it?" And he went,
Oh.
"It's on the phone," and he, and so I don't know. And then there was a lot of consensual charades happening the whole night. So like that's how we were communicating. And he looked at me and then gestured down, and I went. It was so dramatic, and I pulled it out of me. He was no help, and he was no help really. And then he wanted to go again. I said, "Oh, niggas across the diaspora are the same. They speak the same language. Audacity. You have to leave. It doesn't matter."
Audacity. Yeah.
Wow, how we get there? But black language, no. But that not even having to seeing the similarities across cultural, across race, across like just being able to see folks use the same formula on different communities, which is why it's really getting me hot that so much of the black community doesn't really give a fuck about the immigration rates happening.
Wait, can I just address this real quick? Even though we're trying to be adults, it's
Oh
not
yeah,
because it's too big. It's because we're too wet.
grippy.
Yeah.
Kegels.
I am, you know, on a basic note. So I did a video with. Now you're just hanging out with me and Christina, by the way. So I did. That's really what's happening now. I did because I like you a lot, and they be like, and they know that I don't be liking people. I don't be, but so I did an interview with Quentin Funky Dineva. We did a talk about just Iran and everything. And then I had also said to him on the side, like, we need to talk about you telling your people about like not caring about this ICE stuff. And he was like, let's talk about it. And I was able to switch his perspective in one sentence. In one sentence. And I was like, I don't care how people vote. I can't cheer on any effort of white supremacy to advance itself. And he was like, oh, damn it.
He didn't see.
He didn't. And I honestly feel like that's part of the indoctrination, and that's part of what your uncle is beating back, and that's part of what you're beating back. It is the imperial effort of individualism that is like finding itself in some weird amorphous cancer that's worked its way into this black community where we are now carrying out imperialism against
ourselves. people talking about that ain't got nothing to do with me. They're changing. They're number one. They're attacking. First of all, I don't give a fuck about a border. Borders don't even care about borders. Ask a border how they feel about themselves. Border made up.
I just saw Howard Zinn talking about. And if you've never read Howard Zinn's The History of the People of the United States, please read it. But he was like, we don't talk about open borders because we want there to be trade. We talk about open borders because like the world is for all the peoples.
What are we talking about? But they like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. They're changing the status. They're changing the definition of legal and immigrant. And you don't think they could change the definition of citizen?
There is no definition of citizen, by the way. Nowhere in
You're right, yeah.
Nowhere in the Constitution does it doesn't say the definition of citizen. It just says citizen. It doesn't say the definition, and that is by design. You think these crackers were smart? The ones in the house right now are not, but the ones who started the joint, like they was inventing electricity and whatnot. Like these were not dummies.
No. They were strong with their hate. They had to go to printing presses for pamphlets. You know how
committed.
They were committed. And if white liberals and had the same type of commitment, maybe we would get. But anyways, so that's the one. The racists committed back in the day. I'm glad that one sentence changed his mind. I get real impatient because I'm like, isn't it right there? Like,
no,
it's right there. But you want to punch down on folks to get a semblance of a white man of a semblance of privilege of what a white man could feel like. And that's very disappointing. It's disappointing. It's annoying. It's irritating. And something that like we've also been talking about and dealing with.
Someone just said that they was in Whole Hoods in 103 degrees. Like that's the
Like,
dedication.
with 2 slits. Like hello, that hate fueled them, honey. If they go to migrants, who do black folks think they plan to do? Who do black folks think they plan to do the labor? Black folks are already doing the labor, and that's another thing. Prison industrial complex. It's already happening.
I know that there's been conversation around this concept of like we need to look at these are just people. It's not just what they bring to the country, it's that they're people. And I hear you. I also want to acknowledge though that there is something to be said for that these folks are skilled people. They're skilled. So it's not even I'm not saying it for what it does for the country. I'm just acknowledging that like these are not just regular old anybody's, okay? Like you can't succeed in this country without a skill, and that's the part. Unless you're white.
Oh, let's let that marinate.
My mom was a workers' comp, case manager for like my whole life, and she was like, "I'm gonna tell you now, all the immigrants are like, how do I get back to work? How do I get back to work? I know that I have one less leg now. How do I get back to work?" Everybody else, she was like, the white Americans would be like, how can I get on disability? Immediately.
Well, who are the welfare queens?
And so it's very much a very real conversation around a huge shift that's happening right now. So when you talk about the concept of resiliency, can you lead us to where you feel like that exists at present in terms of its misuse or its proper use or its necessity to be tapped into?
Resiliency now.
Resiliency Now sounds like a spinoff of Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! That I host.
It does. It does. I think people are trying to find I think people are trying to find the resiliency. Certain people. I'm gonna speak specifically from the context of living in America, being American, being Black, queer Black woman in America, right? You know, because there's a
You're
lot
a
of
queer
folks
Black
out.
woman in America?
I sure am.
See, y'all, I just wish I was that flexible.
I'm very in multiple ways. But let's get up to we're adulting today. What was I saying? Oh, because there's a lot of people elsewhere who are having to be even more resilient and dealing with a lot of other difficult things that like I am not. So holding space for that privilege there. But resiliency from my lens right now and folks in Black community, I feel like I want to say this. I feel like we have to get back to our roots of what resiliency was looking like. I do. I feel a little
I feel like
bit
you're holding
like
back.
I am. I'm trying to figure out
Pourquoi?
how to because I'm trying to figure out my words. I guess I could just talk and draft.
Yeah, that's what this space is about. This
Okay.
is not Instagram where you have to have a fully formed thesis for a bunch of people who've
True.
never read to come and tell you, but you forgot. And you're like, it's a 60-second video.
You're right. True. Right. I feel like we've lost a little bit of the art of the resiliency, and not in the way of like our ancestors got through worse. We could like our ancestors went through worse. I don't think we're actually thinking enough about that. Like, no, fathom the worst that they went through and the resiliency they had to have and the decisions they had to make, the comforts they did not have, the ways they had to fight, the ways they had to sacrifice, the way I think we're in an era where it's like we want resiliency on a tote bag. Resiliency.
Wait, you know what we want? We want a resiliency telfie. We want a resiliency telfar, y'all.
And I think Ooh, getting back to like we're talking about resiliency, but it's like, do you even know the person across the street? I made a video recently where I'm like, you know your best friend's like brunch order, but like, do you know where she keeps her documents? Do you know who's in the home hiding stuff under the mattress? Who are you building with to be like how we're going to fight what might come to us? That was the type of resiliency that like, what is your strength? What is my strength? What is your weakness? How can we offset that? What are you good at? What is your and why it was so important for me tapping back into like my direct lineage is me realizing, oh, I didn't have this strength by myself. I'm not reinventing anything new. This comes from somewhere. It comes from somewhere. It comes from my mom, my daddy, my grandma, my great uncles, people I haven't even met. It's in my spirit. It's in my bones. That is what I need to work with. And I'm sitting here, especially with social media, capitalism, technology, everyone is feeling like they have to be everything. And we're seeing so many things happen just all across the world that I feel like we're losing the lens a little bit of like the micro. And one of the things that I loved
Okay.
learning, I do. One of the things I really loved learning in my academics was that the personal is political, the political is personal,
Mm-hmm.
and what is happening politically and globally is personal. It does affect me
Yes.
personal, and the changes I can make personally can
Reverberate
also
out.
they reverberate out. They matter. Um,
Someone
and
tried to tell me that me talking about Andrew Cuomo's run for mayor in New York was not a current event. Then
see what I
someone
see? You see
also
what I mean?
then someone also said, if you don't live in New York City, then keep your mouth out of this conversation. Uh, I live in
So
the
you
United States. I live in the United States.
wh- what what's
Now,
happening? Sorry, go.
I
Sorry.
live in the United States. So the concept that if you don't live in a particular place in the United States, that you shouldn't care about what happens there is so wildly uninformed, even on the basis that these bills are copy and pasted across county, city, and state lines on a regular basis. It actually ends up coming to you. When you see something happen in Tennessee, you should absolutely be saying, how long is it going to take before it gets to me? Because that's the ground zero of white nationalism, Tennessee and Texas, if you didn't
Hello.
know.
That is insane. Someone said, "Isn't he currently running?" Yeah.
Yeah.
It's election day today.
Like literally.
It's election day today for the primary. That is scary that they said that's not a current event. Um, these current events are working in tandem. And the thing is,
You're
there's
going to
it's no
appreciate though that the context was you need to stop acting like you didn't encourage people not to vote for Kamala and focus on current events instead of talking about candidates in a city that you don't live in. And people were like, first of all, she didn't. Second of all, this is happening right now. You know what's not happening right now? Kamala Harris as president. That's not happening
that's
right
not
now.
happening at all. You didn't say that. You said hold politicians to a standard and ask for things, demand things. But anyways, that really took me back. My brain is trying to process that. That's projection, more than anything. But to say what is happening in a current NYC mayoral race is directly related to what is happening in California with the ICE raids, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening with all of that is all connected. And
When did you realize that?
that everything was connected.
Yeah.
When in my life?
Yeah. Did you always know that?
Um,
Like geopolitically?
let me think.
I mean, and I
I
mean that in more of a literal way. Like I feel like there's
Yeah,
a certain esotericness around like everything is everything.
I knew everything was connected when I when I studied abroad in France for the first time. And one of the essays I had to write it was a political class I was taking out there in French. So I tried to essay in French.
Oui, oui, ma
But
chérie.
I wrote an essay the essay I decided to write was because I went out there right after Je suis Charlie, and then right as those Paris attacks were happening. And there was a lot of anti-Muslim sentiments in
Sentiment.
France. There still is, but there's a lot. And I found myself while there relating to the Arab and Muslim community and seeing similarities in the way that they were treated. Talking about the no-go zones, the ghettos that they live in, and like
Mm-hmm.
hearing white French people talk about them, and I was like, oh, so my assessment of that attack, I was had to been like 1920,
Mm-hmm.
was like, y'all have been pushing people so much. This is the oppressed group, and
Yeah.
maybe there was a violent type of retaliation, but I'm not seeing it. I'm relating to this oppressed group. And so the essay I wrote was like the a comparison between anti Muslim sentiments in America and anti-Muslim sentiments in France. And
Hmm.
the professor, when I handed it in, she was like, "Oh, because it's just very polarizing." And I was like, "Yes, because yeah, it made me think about after 9/11, and that is, my 19, 20-year-old brain. I was like, huh, based off of what I've heard, because I was like 6 when 9/11 happened, but
Stop showing off.
I'm not showing up. I'm just, I was
I
like,
was
based off of,
6 when 9/11 happened is
I know, it was,
wild.
but I was like, oh, this is all connected. And talking to people just outside of the country, being outside of the country for the first time in my young adulthood was like, yeah, this is all connected. And then,
But the moral
but
of the
so
story is you
obviously,
had to be out of the country.
and seeing the privilege an American passport got me, that is
Mm.
something that a lot of Black folks in America have not. Yeah, we're just ignorant. We're ignorant, truly in the ignorance and maybe intellectually, but even the experience of it. I think it's different knowing that than actually being like, if it's between me, a Black person, and I got an American passport and another Black person who doesn't, I'm actively seeing how even though this country who oppresses and suppresses me, and I like to say that like marginalized groups within America, we exist in its own kind of, it's not the global south, but it's like
Yeah, it's a
you know
subsect.
it's a subsect of the American identity. When I leave, that has such a protection in certain scenarios and situations that other Black folks, other folks do not have. And I had to sit with that and realize that and see that, and I was like, wow. Living How the professor living here, it's been interesting as immigrant Americans talk about it. Oh, I want to hear more. I
So
got an A on the
me and
essay.
Melissa grew up together in gymnastics, and then she moved to Paris.
Mm,
And
mm.
you know, being an American in Paris is its own journey because they really be like, "Ew, you're an American. Like you didn't know that we're supposed to load the dishwasher this way." Oh my
It's
god.
true. Meanwhile,
Ah.
don't use deodorant, but
So Melissa said, I get in a lot of arguments with French people. Honestly, I'm very impressed that you can argue in French, Melissa.
you
Yes.
got you. That's their love language. That's the French love language is arguing. So you get hit real quick. That's the true romance of Paris is arguing.
Bouton.
Mais c'est vrai, racisme ça existe pas. It does. And honest to God, even I was in France when George Floyd happened. And the just seeing the mirroring, and through obviously when I got my master's in international relations and diplomacy, it was in France. So getting a master's in international relations outside of America, talking to people from literally different parts of the world, I was like, yeah, this is all connected. The personal is political, the macro is the micro is macro,
Mm-hmm.
the international is national, is local. Um, and I have to consistently remind myself of that when I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I feel like I have to do all of these things. And I'm like, well, let me first start. Let me see if I can shift something here. Because if I can't even shift here, fuck, I'm
Yeah.
going to do on a big stage, you know? Um,
How old are you
and then
now?
folk, I'll be 30 this year. You keep what?
No, in my mind, no, because you're mature beyond your years.
Yeah. I have an Aquarius rising and a Scorpio sun. Yeah, it's just a lot of Pluto and Saturn in my chart. Older
I
middle
feel
child.
I feel there's a real guidance for you in the work that you're doing that I think a lot of people should covet because it's really tough figuring out a path. But boy, when you can kind of like walk in steps but still make your own version of it, like, do your own choreo down a yellow brick road, it is a
Trying.
bit easier.
I'm trying. I feel like I've zoomed out. I've had to do a zoom out to be like, I'm and the social media, that also just makes it different. I'm like, our folks back in the day, they didn't have social media. There was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, there was no make a video in 60 seconds, there was
Nope.
no, like, it was
There
very, you
wasn't
had
even
to,
the connectivity that the immediate access.
no, there wasn't. And it comes with pros and cons. And I've been part of me, that is where my opinion about like, ugh, bringing back micro is coming from, because I'm like that figuring out the balance. Oh, thank you. It's been you'd be surprised what can happen when you speak your, actually you wouldn't be surprised what can happen when you speak your
Was
mind,
like
but
me.
no, to just in general.
It's like I'm not surprised
Um,
about any of that.
I've you speak your mind in a certain way, even the people that you're like, really you?
Hmm.
I thought you would at least get it. You don't even get it. Wow.
Nope.
Okay. I must be silent. I'm a
Don't do
and
that,
sip
sir.
and watch. What?
Don't be silent. Don't do that.
I feel like I
Get louder.
wait. I'm
That's
talking about to specifically name and call people out and point at them and be like, they did this, but
fair. Yeah.
I'm
It's
like,
funny. I just said that about my book because I brought my book back from the
mm,
publisher, and I do quite a bit of that in there. And I was like, when they least expect it, the book will go drop, and they're
and
gonna
it
be like,
should.
because they're gonna think
And it should.
because they're gonna think that I don't know why I felt like the need. I don't know why a West Indian accent felt like that was needed for that.
I feel it.
But they're gonna be just walking through life thinking they got away with
And you
really
didn't.
being low vibrational beings. And then booyaka shot! The truth will go
Hello.
hit them right in the middle of the forehead.
And a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And I really, it's deserved. But I do love the obey of hello. I was about to say, I was literally about to say, um, people tap into your ancestral stuff, y'all. Understand your gifts. I need people to understand their gifts, and then collaborate with folks who got different gifts. You ain't got to be
Yeah.
everything, and you're not supposed to be everything. I've come to the point where I realized, and I'm having to claim, meet very griot. I'm here to be oracle. I'm here to grow. I'm here to do the synapses. I'm here to be like, and this is the story, all about how all of our lives got flipped upside down, and the
Mm-hmm.
connections, and to bring the history into the current, and move stories along. I'm not the person that's maybe going to be working with the roots, or I'm not the person that might be always on the front line. I'm not going to be like, what is it that we all have a special makeup of gifts in order to be resilient and in order to fight. And I'm in my era right now of reconnecting with that and connecting with the ancestral lineage that has brought me here, because I just didn't come out of nowhere. And I'm finding that in me reconnecting with it, my family is also. And that is what I mean with like connecting with the resilience, is understanding actually how resilience feels in your body, because your resilience might not look the same as somebody else's, and you might need to collaborate. You might need to collaborate in resilience. You're not we're not getting through any of this alone. Like it's impossible, and it's not. And they want you to think that's by design, and it's not. It is going to take sacrifice. That's another thing. Yeah, sacrificing comfort, sacrificing um, maybe stability, sacrificing financial stability. It's gonna take sacrifice. That is, it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. Um, and you got to figure out what you can be willing to, what you have the capacity and willingness to sacrifice, and ask for. I'm sacrificing this. I might need a little bit of help here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Be community, but also one of quote someone in one of the like communal spaces that I'm in a year ago said this, and I never forgotten it. They were like, "How good of a community member are you if you cannot allow community to be there for you?"
Hmm.
Stuck with me. Stuck with me. I said, "Oh,
Right. It's great that you're willing to be out there for everybody, but can you receive?
can you receive?" And if not, is that your ego? Because your ego can't belong in a space of communal, resistance and resilience. It really can't. You got to think about a collective and and yourself within the collective. So I'm working on that, and I feel like it can feel like there's so much happening and so much going on that there's not a lot of time. I'm struggling with that right now. And the way the type of connection I have with my body, Amanda knows, but I just had a procedure and I've been having so many health things that's like you need to slow and you need to connect with
Center,
this. You need to
ground.
center before you go. Because if I'm going without feeling centered, whether it's in myself or in community, it's not going to work. And so I'm like, I'm being forced right now to center. And so these are the lessons I'm learning, forever student.
Well, we love it. And you taught us today. And
I'm gonna try to get this republished.
I
This
don't
is
think that's a
oh,
hard thing to do.
it's not.
Nah. Have you considered just self-publishing it?
No, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. Is it
Girl,
easy?
you're Christina. You can figure out how to do that in like a weekend.
I can. Huh?
Yeah, you can.
I can. You're right.
And you should self-publish it. Let me not use the language of should. I suggest,
Hmm.
unsolicited, of course, but nonetheless, you're on the show, so you're hostage. Um, I suggest maybe doing a version of it that is like a 2025 or 2026 edition that adds
Oh.
in updated elements of, that kind of bridges. It's like, okay, well, this was the 60s, but there's so much language that has been additive. There's so much that has happened
Mhm.
since the 60s. And so it becomes kind of like a posthumous collaboration between you and your uncle, who
Oh,
is your ancestor.
I just got chills. I might cry about that later. Wow.
You're welcome. It's cancer season.
It is.
It's our time. It's our time. It's our time. It's our time. We gonna cry. We gonna cry. Don't dry my eyes. Don't dry my eyes.
Literally, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Like that to me sounds like something very feasible for you to do in a really deep, impactful way. And then there's a performance aspect to it that comes with it. It
Which
becomes
I
like
want
a
to
it
do.
becomes like a the work it becomes like, a work of Christina Brown.
Yeah. And I do want to perform. I'm getting into that
Mhm.
bag too. So I'm supposed to
So
be. So
thank you for being here. Thank you for
thank
sharing with
you.
us. And keep on keeping on.
Thank you. I hope to come back. This was fun. Oh my God. Oh,
I am I'm taking a month off,
good. Nice.
taking July off, and then we'll be back in August and we'll be doing the show once a week. Um and I'm working on having more time to create other things that give people enrichment and
Mhm.
education and empowerment. And we've been able to build a really beautiful community here at Views from AmandaLand, and we will continue to do that.
Mhm.
And I have other places for all of us to connect. So that's
I
gonna
love
happen.
that. I love that.
So I will connect with you about other things after.
Yes.
But thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank your uncle for sharing with us.
Thank you, Unc. Malachi, such a Malachi.
Malachi.
Like,
I mean, yeah, exactly.
oh,
Exactly.
Uncle
It's
Malachi.
very on. It's very
It
like
is.
on the nose. Yes.
It is.
You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Goodbye, everybody.
I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seals. Come on and join the Seals Squad. Views from AmandaLand. Live 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Wednesday, with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seals TV. Smart